Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're taking a closer look at Freemasonry. We're using Freemasonry, its hidden meaning, by George H. Steinmetz, as our guide for this deep dive.
It's a really fascinating book.
Yeah. Now, you know this subject, Freemasonry, it's full of all kinds of secrets, symbols, and things like that. But what I found really interesting about this book is it's that Steinmetz himself, the author, had kind of a unique path to Masonry, you know?
Oh, yeah.
He was a singer, believe it or not.
Wow.
And he explored all these different religions before kind of finally finding answers and things that resonated with him in Masonic teachings.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's almost like he's coming at this from a perspective of personal thinking, which I think, makes his insights even more interesting.
Yeah, I think it definitely adds a layer of intrigue to his analysis.
Right.
Because he's not just a scholar studying from the outside.
Right.
He's someone who deeply resonated with these teachings and felt compelled to uncover their hidden meanings.
Exactly, yeah. And one of the most intriguing arguments he makes right off the bat is that while Freemasonry says it's not a religion, it essentially becomes one for those who actually truly engage with its teachings.
Right.
Which might seem like a contradiction, but Steinmetz actually backs it up with some pretty interesting sources. What do you think?
Well, he actually uses the Masonic Manual of Missouri, which straight up says that Masonry's religion, if religion it may be called, is believing in God.
Right.
And he even quotes Albert Pike from Morals and Dogma, where Pike says that Masonry is the subjugation of the human that is in man by the divine.
Okay.
And these are authoritative Masonic texts, so it's not like he's pulling this out of thin air.
Right. He's using their own words to make his point.
Exactly.
And when you think about it, the Masonic rituals themselves have a lot of religious elements. You got the Bible on the altar, they're using scripture, there's this emphasis on studying God's word, all these different things.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that Steinmetz doesn't frame this as Masonry conflicting with other religions.
Oh, okay.
He focuses on its potential to become a personal religion.
Okay.
A framework for understanding the divine, which he sees as a path to truth that resonates deeply with the individual.
That really resonated with me.
Sure.
It really makes you think about how personal belief can manifest in unexpected ways sometimes.
Yeah.
Have you ever encountered something that wasn't explicitly religious, but it kind of provided you with a framework for maybe spiritual understanding or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we often find meaning and connection in places we least expect it.
Right.
But going back to Steinmetz, he doesn't stop at this paradox of Masonry as a potential religion.
Right.
He goes on to argue that there's a secret doctrine hidden within the teachings.
Yes.
Concealed beneath these layers of allegory and symbolism.
Yes. He says that the typical rational explanations of Masonic ceremonies, it's like they barely scratch the surface.
Yeah.
It's almost like the real meaning is veiled, meant to be uncovered through deeper study and contemplation.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where his background as a seeker really comes through,
Yeah.
He approaches Freemasonry with a sense of wonder and a thirst for knowledge. And he really urges the readers to go beyond just the literal and to delve into the symbolic realm.
Right.
And he even suggests connections to ancient Egyptian mysteries.
Interesting.
Yeah, hinting at this long lineage of esoteric knowledge passed down through generations.
Oh, wow. It's like he's inviting us to go on a treasure hunt,
Totally.
using the symbols and rituals as clues to uncover this deeper truth.
Exactly.
And speaking of clues, he makes this really fascinating connection between the 3 degrees of Masonry, the Entered Apprentice, Fellow Craft, and Master Mason.
Right.
And he connects those to the 3 planes of human existence: physical, psychical, and spiritual.
Yeah, this is where his analysis gets really compelling. He argues that each degree isn't just a step in a hierarchy, but a symbolic representation of a different aspect of our being.
Yeah.
And by understanding those connections, we can unlock a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe.
Okay, so let's start with the Entered Apprentice degree. How does he connect that to the physical plane?
He focuses on the symbolism of being brought from darkness to light, which he interprets as an awakening to knowledge and a symbolic representation of entering the Masonic world.
Wow.
The emphasis on the square and compasses as these tools of measurement and construction also points to this focus on the material realm, building a solid foundation in the physical world.
So it's like the Entered Apprentice degree is about establishing yourself in the material world, learning those basic principles and tools that you need to navigate it.
Exactly, yeah. It's about grounding yourself in the physical before moving on to explore the psychical and spiritual realms.
Gotcha.
And this is where the Fellowcraft degree comes in.
Right, the Fellowcraft degree, which he associates with the psychical plane. What are some of the key symbols and rituals that highlight this connection?
Well, the winding stairs are central here. He sees them as representing the intellectual and spiritual ascent, that journey of seeking knowledge and understanding. And the wages earned along the way, corn, wine, and oil, they represent nourishment and sustenance for the mind and spirit. It's not just about accumulating facts, it's about nourishing your intellect and soul.
So in the Fellowcraft degree, you're no longer just learning the basics, but you're actively engaged in the pursuit of knowledge and personal growth.
Exactly. You're climbing the ladder of understanding, and the wages symbolize the enlightenment you gain along the way.
And then finally we get to the top, the Master Mason degree, which he associates with the spiritual plane.
Yeah, this is where the focus shifts to achieving a higher level of consciousness, a state of spiritual mastery.
Okay.
And a key symbol here is the trowel, which represents brotherly love. It suggests that at this level, it's not just about individual development, but about connecting with others on a deeper level, building a community based on shared values and understanding.
So the Master Mason degree is about transcending the individual ego and recognizing our interconnectedness with others and the divine.
Yeah.
But he throws in this curveball here with his idea of the lost word.
Yes, the lost word.
Yeah.
This is where things get really intriguing.
Yeah.
He argues that modern Masons haven't truly attained the level of Master Mason.
Okay.
Because they're missing this crucial piece of knowledge.
Right.
He doesn't reveal what he believes this word is, but he suggests that it holds the key to unlocking a deeper level of spiritual understanding.
It's like a challenge almost,
Right.
urging us to delve deeper into these mysteries of Freemasonry and discover this lost knowledge for ourselves.
Totally.
It's like he's given us this map, but the final destination is still kind of shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
It's up to us to follow the clues and see where they lead. But before we embark on that journey, let's take a closer look at how Steinmetz interprets some of the key symbols of Freemasonry.
Okay.
We've already touched on the square and compasses, but he really delves into their deeper meaning, suggesting that they represent more than just tools of the trade.
Well, he sees them as representing this duality of human nature, the material and the spiritual, a concept that runs through many spiritual traditions.
Right.
The square, with its precise measurements and right angles, embodies the material world, that realm of structure and order.
It's like the foundation upon which we build our lives.
Yeah.
The tangible world that we can see and touch.
Exactly. And the compasses, with their ability to draw these circles and arcs, symbolize the spiritual realm, the realm of infinite possibilities and connection to something greater than ourselves.
So it's like the square represents our groundedness in the physical world, while the compasses represent our yearning for something, beyond the material.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is that Steinmetz points out how the placement of these symbols changes as you progress through the degrees.
Okay.
In the Entered Apprentice degree, the square's typically placed above the compasses, suggesting that at that stage, the focus is on the material world.
Okay.
But as you move through the degrees, the emphasis shifts toward the spiritual, with the compasses eventually taking precedence over the square.
Right.
It's like a visual representation of the journey from the physical to the spiritual.
Precisely, yeah. And it really reinforces his argument that the degrees aren't just these hierarchical steps,
Right.
but symbolic representations of different stages of spiritual development.
Totally.
Man, this is really making me think about the power of symbols.
Yeah.
Even just simple objects can hold profound meaning and really guide us on our spiritual journeys.
It's true. Symbols have a way of speaking to us on a deeper level, bypassing the rational mind and tapping into something more primal and intuitive.
Okay, so we've talked about the square and compasses, which are, arguably the most recognizable symbols.
Yeah.
What about some of the other symbols that he explores?
Well, one that he finds particularly fascinating is the blazing star. He sees it as representing divine presence,
Okay.
a guiding light on the path to spiritual understanding.
I can see that. It's like a beacon illuminating the way forward.
Yeah.
Dispelling the darkness of ignorance and guiding us toward the truth.
And what's interesting is that the blazing star is often depicted within a circle, which Steinmetz interprets as representing the boundary of our duty, the limits we should strive to stay within.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like a reminder to stay true to our principles and values.
Yeah.
To live a life guided by, higher ideals.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful symbol, really full of depth and meaning.
Absolutely. And then there's the beehive.
The beehive, yeah.
A symbol that might not immediately spring to mind.
Right.
When you think of Freemasonry. But Steinmetz makes a compelling case for its inclusion.
I love how he interprets the beehive symbol. He calls it the spirit of the hive.
Yeah.
Which he describes as this instinctive knowledge of universal law. It's as if the bees are working together harmoniously, each playing their part.
Right.
Guided by this innate understanding of the natural order.
Yeah, it's such a powerful analogy.
Right.
And he suggests that when humans align themselves with that same universal law, they too can experience a sense of peace and harmony in their lives.
It's a beautiful vision, isn't it?
Yeah.
A world where we're all kind of working together, guided by a shared understanding of what's right and true.
Right.
Creating a society that reflects the harmony and balance of the natural world.
It's definitely something to aspire to. And it ties in beautifully with another key concept that Steinmetz explores, the power of thought to shape reality, what he calls mental science.
Okay, let's dive into that. This is a concept that has always intrigued me, this idea that our thoughts have a tangible impact on our experiences. How does he connect this to Freemasonry?
Well, he believes that Freemasonry, at its core, is about understanding and harnessing the power of the mind. He argues that the rituals and symbols are designed to teach us about the creative potential of our thoughts.
Okay.
And how to use them to manifest our desires.
So he's suggesting that we're not just these passive recipients of fate, but active creators of our own reality.
Exactly. He explains that the objective mind, that conscious part of us that makes decisions, can direct the subjective mind, which operates beneath the surface, and controls things like our bodily functions and our experiences in the world.
So it's like we have this incredible power within us to shape our reality, but most of us are either unaware of it or we don't know how to use it effectively.
That's right. And Steinmetz believes that the teachings of Freemasonry are meant to help us awaken to this power and learn how to wield it wisely. He emphasizes the importance of visualization, of holding a clear picture in our minds of what we want to create.
And then impressing that image upon the subjective mind, almost like planting a seed that will eventually grow into reality.
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
It raises the question, if we can truly harness the power of our minds, what are we capable of achieving?
That's a question for each of us to ponder,
Yeah.
But before we get too lost in the possibilities, let's take a closer look at how Steinmetz applies this concept of mental science to the different degrees of Masonry.
Okay.
He sees a clear progression in how each degree teaches us to use our minds more effectively.
Absolutely. In the Entered Apprentice degree, the focus is on mastering the physical world.
Okay.
Learning to use tools and build a solid foundation. This could be seen as a metaphor for learning to control our thoughts and actions, laying the groundwork for mental discipline.
So it's about establishing control over the basic building blocks of our reality, so to speak.
Exactly. And then in the Fellowcraft degree, the focus shifts to the intellectual realm, to expanding our knowledge and understanding. This could be interpreted as learning to direct our thoughts towards higher pursuits,
Right.
to cultivate a more refined and discerning mind.
That's like refining the tools of thought, so to speak.
Precisely, yeah. And finally, in the Master Mason degree, the focus is on achieving spiritual mastery, which Steinmetz believes involves aligning our thoughts with universal law, tapping into the spirit of the hive.
So it's about transcending those limitations of the individual ego.
Yeah.
And connecting with a higher source of wisdom and guidance.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our thoughts are not just our own, but are influenced by the collective consciousness, that interconnected web of all beings.
Man, this is all really making me think about the interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah.
How our thoughts and actions not only shape our own reality, but also contribute to the collective reality that we all share.
It's a profound realization, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really highlights the responsibility we have to use our minds wisely,
Right.
to choose thoughts and actions that contribute to the greater good.
Yeah. But this brings us back to the lost word. If, as he argues, modern Masons are missing this crucial piece of knowledge, are we truly capable of harnessing the full power of our minds?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is this lost word?
Right.
And how can we rediscover it? Steinmetz doesn't provide all the answers, but he points us in the right direction, urging us to delve deeper into the mysteries of Freemasonry and seek the truth for ourselves.
It's a fascinating challenge, a call to adventure for the modern seeker. But before we venture further into that mystery, let's maybe take a break and come back to explore another key element of Steinmetz's interpretation.
Yeah.
The story of Hiram Abiff.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Hiram Abiff is such a central figure in Masonic lore.
Right.
And Steinmetz's analysis of his story provides some really insightful perspectives on the path to spiritual enlightenment.
Definitely. Stay tuned, folks, because things are about to get even more intriguing.
Welcome back. We were just talking about the power of thought and this lost word in Freemasonry. Steinmetz, he uses the story of Hiram Abiff, the master builder of King Solomon's temple, to illustrate these concepts.
Right.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not just a historical tale, it's an allegory.
Right.
Full of symbolism, and it really speaks to the challenges and triumphs you face on this path to spiritual enlightenment.
I got to admit, I was totally drawn in by his interpretation.
Yeah.
It's easy to get lost, I think, in the literal details of the story, but when you start to see it through Steinmetz's lens, it takes on a whole new level of meaning.
Totally.
He sees Hiram as a representation of the individual's striving for that spiritual mastery, tasked with building the temple, which symbolizes that inner sanctuary that we each want to create within ourselves.
And the challenges that Hiram faces in the story, they resonate with the obstacles we encounter on our own spiritual journeys,
Right.
He's betrayed by those who envy his knowledge and skill.
Right.
And that reflects the internal and external forces that try to hold us back, prevent us from achieving our full potential.
It's like the story is saying that true growth requires us to overcome adversity, to stay committed to our path, even when we're faced with opposition.
Totally, yeah.
And then, of course, there's the ultimate sacrifice, Hiram's murder. Steinmetz interprets this as the death of the ego.
Yeah.
The surrender of self to a higher purpose.
It's such a powerful image, isn't it? This idea that true spiritual transformation requires a death of sorts, a letting go of our old ways of being and thinking to make space for something new to emerge.
Right.
And this is where that lost word comes back into play. Steinmetz suggests that Hiram possessed this secret knowledge, this key to unlocking true spiritual mastery.
Right.
But it was lost with his death.
Right.
So the story becomes this metaphor for the search for this lost knowledge, for this hidden truth that can lead to enlightenment.
It's a reminder that the path to spiritual growth is not always easy, and there will be times when we feel lost or uncertain.
Absolutely.
But the story of Hiram Abiff offers hope. Even though he is murdered, his legacy lives on, and his spirit is resurrected, symbolizing the triumph of the spiritual over the material.
It's a powerful message, isn't it? That even in the face of death, the spirit endures. And that pursuit of truth continues. But let's shift gears for a moment. Let's talk about how Steinmetz connects all of this back to the individual.
Okay.
He seems to place a lot of emphasis on personal responsibility when it comes to spiritual growth.
He does. He repeatedly stresses that spiritual progress is not a passive process. It's something we have to actively work towards.
Exactly.
He believes that the lodge can provide guidance and support, but ultimately it's up to the individual to do the inner work, to cultivate the virtues and qualities that lead to enlightenment.
Right, so it's not enough to just go through the motions of the rituals or memorize the teachings. You have to actually embody them.
Right.
Make them a living part of who you are.
Yeah, he's challenging us to take ownership of our spiritual development.
He is, and he's really critical of those who become complacent, who settle for a superficial understanding of the teachings without putting in the effort to delve deeper, Yeah. He sees true Freemasonry as this lifelong pursuit.
Right.
A journey of continuous self-discovery and spiritual evolution.
It really makes you think about the importance of constantly seeking knowledge, of challenging yourself to grow and evolve, and applying what you learn to your daily life.
Yeah.
It's not just about accumulating information. It's about transforming yourself from the inside out.
I think that's a message that resonates far beyond just the confines of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
It's a universal truth that applies to anyone seeking meaning and purpose in their lives.
It's about taking responsibility for your own growth, for becoming the best version of yourself that you can be. But let's go back to the symbols for a minute. Earlier, we talked about the square and compasses, the blazing star, the beehive.
Yeah.
Steinmetz also digs into the symbolism of the letter G, which often appears at the center of the square and compasses.
Yes, the enigmatic G. The traditional interpretation, of course, is that it stands for God, or geometry, representing the divine architect of the universe.
Right.
And the order and precision of the natural world. It's a powerful symbol pointing to that interconnectedness of all things.
But Steinmetz suggests that the letter G might actually be a more modern addition to Masonic symbolism.
Oh.
Not necessarily rooted in the ancient teachings. He questions whether it truly encapsulates the concept of deity.
I see.
He points out that G doesn't translate across all languages and suggests that the Hebrew letter Yod, which is the initial letter of the Hebrew name for God, Yahweh, might be a more appropriate symbol.
Interesting.
So this kind of highlights the importance of understanding the historical context of symbols.
Yeah.
And being open to different interpretations.
It's like he's encouraging us to question those assumptions and to dig a little deeper, to not just accept things at face value, but to really seek a more nuanced understanding.
Absolutely. And this critical thinking, this willingness to question and explore, it's essential for anyone on a spiritual path.
Right?
It's about engaging our minds as well as our hearts, using both intellect and intuition to uncover the truth.
So we've talked about the symbols, the allegories, the personal responsibility, the power of thought, but how does Steinmetz tie all of these threads together? What's his ultimate message about Freemasonry and its potential for personal transformation?
Well, I think his ultimate message is one of empowerment. He's saying that Freemasonry, at its core, is about unlocking that hidden potential within each of us, the potential to shape our own reality and to achieve spiritual mastery.
Right.
But it's not a path for the passive or the faint of heart. It requires dedication, self-discipline, and a willingness to confront our limitations.
He reminds us that the tools for transformation are within our grasp, but we have to choose to use them.
Right.
We have to be willing to do that inner work, to confront our shadows, and to embrace the challenges and triumphs that come with spiritual growth.
It's a call to action, isn't it? A challenge to step into our full potential, to become the architects of our own destinies.
It is, and it's a challenge that really resonates deeply with, I think, the human spirit. This yearning for meaning, for purpose, and for connection to something greater than ourselves.
And maybe that's the true meaning of the lost word. It's not a literal word, but a state of being.
Right.
A realization of our inherent power and connection to the divine.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it leaves us with the question, how can we rediscover this lost word within ourselves? How can we tap into this wellspring of potential and create a world that reflects the harmony and wisdom of the spirit of the hive?
It's a question worth pondering. And maybe the answers lie not in ancient texts or secret rituals, but in the depths of our own hearts and minds.
Maybe the journey itself is the key, that act of seeking, questioning, and striving to become the best versions of ourselves.
Right.
And maybe that's the most valuable lesson that Steinmetz offers in his book.
I think you're right. It's a reminder that the path to enlightenment is not about finding a destination, but about embracing the journey itself.
And that journey is full of wonder and discovery and the potential for profound transformation.
It's a journey we each must take for ourselves. But before we wrap up this deep dive, let's revisit one of the most compelling aspects of Steinmetz's book, his analysis of the story of Hiram Abiff.
Yes, let's delve a little deeper into that symbolism and the meaning of that allegory, because I think it holds some important clues about the challenges and rewards of that spiritual path.
And perhaps by understanding Hiram's journey, we can gain a deeper understanding of our own. So we've been talking about this idea of a journey, this path to spiritual enlightenment. And it's something that Steinmetz really emphasizes throughout the book, this sense of ongoing exploration and discovery.
Absolutely. It's not about reaching a final destination. It's about the process of growth and transformation. And I think the story of Hiram Abiff really encapsulates that idea.
Right, the master builder, tasked with constructing Solomon's temple.
Yeah, and the temple itself, it becomes the symbol of the inner sanctuary that we're each trying to create within ourselves. It's a representation of that spiritual mastery that we're all striving for.
And it's interesting how Steinmetz interprets the challenges that Hiram faces, those who try to steal his knowledge and ultimately his murder.
Right. It speaks to the obstacles we all encounter on our spiritual paths. Those internal and external forces that try to hold us back, to prevent us from reaching our full potential.
It's like those moments of doubt we all have, those temptations to take shortcuts or to give up on the journey altogether.
Exactly. And Steinmetz seems to be saying that overcoming those challenges is an essential part of the process. It's through those trials that we develop our strength and resilience, and that we ultimately achieve true growth.
And then, of course, there's that pivotal moment, Hiram's murder. It's a brutal act, but Steinmetz sees it as representing the death of the ego, the surrender of the self to a higher purpose.
It's a powerful image, the idea that we have to let go of our old ways of thinking and being in order to make space for something new to emerge.
Right. It's like we have to die to ourselves in order to truly live. And it's interesting how he ties this back to the concept of the lost word, that secret knowledge that Hiram possessed.
Yeah, it's as if that knowledge was lost with his death, and now we're all on this quest to rediscover it.
It's a journey of self-discovery, this exploration of the mysteries of Freemasonry and the depths of our own being. But even though Hiram was murdered, his legacy lives on, and his spirit is resurrected, which Steinmetz sees as this symbol of the triumph of the spiritual over the material.
It's a reminder that even in the face of death, the spirit endures and the pursuit of truth continues.
And I think that's what makes this story so compelling. It speaks to that yearning that we all have for something greater than ourselves, for meaning and purpose in our lives.
And it reminds us that the journey itself is the reward. It's not about reaching some final destination, but about the growth and transformation that we experience along the way.
Exactly, and Steinmetz really emphasizes that throughout the book. It's about taking ownership of our spiritual development, about actively engaging in the process of self-discovery.
And about using the tools and teachings of Freemasonry to unlock our hidden potential to become the best versions of ourselves.
It's a call to action, isn't it?
It is, and it's a call that resonates far beyond the walls of the lodge. It's a message that anyone can embrace, regardless of their background or beliefs.
It's about recognizing that we all have this incredible power within us to shape our reality, to create a world that's more harmonious and just.
And to contribute to the greater good in meaningful ways.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Freemasonry, its hidden meaning, just want to say thank you for joining us on this journey. We've covered so much ground, from the symbolism of the square and compasses, to the power of thought, to the allegory of Hiram Abiff.
It's been a fascinating exploration, and I hope it's given you some new insights and maybe sparked some new questions.
And remember, the journey doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. Keep searching, keep questioning, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself.
And as we always say, may your journey be filled with wonder and discovery.